read in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18 and verse 1, "At that time the disciples came to Jesus saying, 'Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?'" I can remember a few times hearing sermons on the question, "Who is the greatest?" Without fail, the question brings to my memory the black and white video of Muhammad Ali's famous proclamation that he was the greatest. I can still see it, him saying with such conviction. But the question for the disciples wasn't, who is the greatest? They wanted to know, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? First of all, let's describe the word heaven. The Greek word for heaven is the word God, cloaked in the word heaven because of the Jewish tendency to avoid using a direct term such as God. So the question could be framed, who is the greatest in the kingdom of God? And then there's the word greater, which refers to eldership or leadership. You see, Jesus was the elder or leader, the overseer of the disciples. They were in submission to him, following him and learning from him. Therefore, Jesus was greater in terms of being higher on the flowchart. I think the word greater easily throws us off when we read this. So now that we understand that, we can reframe the question as, who will be the elders or leaders in the kingdom of God? And we need to pay attention to the context in which the disciples are asking this. You see, they were wrestling with this concept because they were living in the midst of the most revolutionary happenings known to man. These men in real places in real time, they were experiencing the life-giving proof that Jesus was establishing the kingdom of heaven on earth. They had come to believe Jesus as the Son of God because of his teachings and his ability to perform signs and wonders that pointed to his true identity. For centuries, the Jews were waiting for this new kingdom to come. And amazingly, this band of brothers not only saw it happening in their lifetime, they were on the front row of the action. They were even a part of it. So to their astonishment, Jesus has been talking about how he would be taken away and killed, but he would return in 3 days. Confused, they were simply trying to make sense of how can this person who's God be doing all these great things leave? I mean, how can they even make sense of this leader going away? So here they are. On one hand, they were present when the demon-possessed were made free, and they were there when the multitudes were fed. They saw the lame made to walk, and the blind received their sight. I mean, Jesus was their leader, their teacher. In other words, Jesus was their boss. But on the other hand, Jesus was saying he would be taken away and killed before he would come back to them. To be honest, I can't imagine the depth of the confusion and fear and concerns that they had. They were trying to figure out what they were going to do and who would be in charge in the absence of Jesus. It's a pretty natural question. At home, parents consider alternate plans, and good parents prepare wills in the event that one of the parent dies. What reasonable company doesn't have a plan when a position is vacated for whatever reason? The disciples just wanted to know what the plan was since Jesus was going to leave. Who's going to be in charge? Jesus didn't rebuke them for asking the question. In fact, he answered their question when he called for a child to join him. The child hurried to Jesus, and Jesus says that the elders in the kingdom of God should be as a child. You see, children are eager to help. They're quick to follow. Children aren't obsessed with hierarchy and self-preservation. But the Pharisees, they loved their flowcharts filled with lots of titles. They also loved fancy clothing that differentiated all their levels of importance. Religious leaders, well, they were burdening people with lots of unnecessary rules, and there were religious police that constantly kept the people in line. See, the world's leadership used position to easily manipulate the masses to control them, and to secure their own personal wealth. These leaders, in which Jesus is juxtaposing this child, they were using people for their own selfish ambition and desires. The object lesson of a child was in direct contrast to the way of the Pharisees. Jesus was saying to his disciples, if you want to be a leader in the kingdom, be like a child that isn't concerned about flowcharts of power and prestige. Be eager to love and care for others, much like a child seems to do. Meet people where they are, ready to engage them. I was in Cusco, Peru, working with an organization that provided a hot meal to children. The meal that was offered was only given out once a week, and for most of the kids, it was their only hot meal. It was a porridge of sorts, filled with lots of vitamins and protein. I was watching dozens of small children sitting on the steps of an ancient church, sucking this meal through a hole in a grocery bag, when a little boy finished his portion. Another kid scooted over and shared what remained of his meal with the one who ran out of food. How can I forget the display of that older boy's eagerness to help the younger boy? I can't. It was an example of being like a child, full of joy and desire to serve another one. That memory remains with me almost 25 years later. So let's be servant leaders, not like leaders of the world. Let's be people of God who are filled with the Spirit of God that offer life and love to all that we encounter. After all, you and I are to be the hands and feet of Jesus to a world that desperately needs His saving touch.